I can just tell my scores if
Sure,
that interests.
sure.
For reading, I had on the new scale, I had 549, so that gave me the C1. For listening, it was 475. For reading, it was sorry. For writing, it was 495, and the least score was in speaking, which was 461. That's where I just about managed to get the 450.
Have you given
Luckily, no.
the exam at where, which center?
I gave it this in Mumbai.
Mumbai. Okay.
Alliance
It's
Francis Mumbai. Yeah.
computerized.
Yeah. It's computerized. The examiner was a French national. She was quite good. She spoke very proper native French, but she was a very nice person.
I
Nice examiner to get.
get an impression, if you remember, is that even though she was French, uh, for this exam, when they conduct the speaking test, they speak a bit slow
They
and
do, for sure.
similar question on this topic, especially people who are not in IT or computer background. So this exam, writing exam, happens in a computer. Like you have this.
Yes.
So everybody's super worried. Many people are worried sometimes that how will I put the accents and does it take more time? So how was the experience for you?
For all my practice that I did before the exam, I used the French type it
Dot
thing,
org.
right? Not on Word or something which tends to autocorrect, etc. So I used the French type it website to practice. But to be honest, the software that they use in the exam is quite different from even French type it, right? So then I started practicing in a way that I finished my exam at least 10 to 15 minutes writing 10 to 15 minutes before. So I have 15 minutes to again go through and put the accents and check and recheck, because losing marks for accents is like the worst way to lose marks probably in these written exams. So it is not very user friendly, but it is not something that is going to prevent you from scoring well if you practice enough, is what I would say.
That is the
So
advice that we give to everyone, that you
yeah,
write first, don't worry about accents, you complete your
yeah,
writing, and then reserve the time, 5 to 10 minutes, or 10 minutes, let's say, and then put them together at the same time. At the same time, you are also checking your text, like
checking,
mistakes.
correct, correct.
So that
But
helps.
practice it like that, I mean, where all the time tests that you take, it's important you practice it like you're giving in an exam. Otherwise, it will be, difficult and time.
Guys, you have to keep in mind. So you cannot just execute this plan first time in the exam.
Yeah, no, you can't.
You have to practice like that.
Yeah,
That you'll have to keep 10 minutes just to put accents. And French type it, use it like that. Just put the accent in French type it in the last 10 minutes and correct your work. So that's a very good tip. How did you manage your time effectively while preparing for the exam? Like between your work and family commitments, because that seems to be the biggest challenge that.
I think it's a simple answer to it. You have to minimize your family and work commitments. You will have to sacrifice on time you spend with your family, time you spend for your work related aspects. So maybe I'll break it down for your family. Look, some commitments are going to be which you have to do, right? Like if you're a parent, you have to spend time with your kid, and that's something that's a bit of a non-negotiable, which is what it is. But other than that, you may not be able to attend birthday parties and events in the family or festival celebrations, and you have to sacrifice that because you are taking on a big enough challenge in your life of taking up this studying a French, a new language at this stage of your life. So just accept that you need to make those sacrifices, and once you I think it's pretty doable once you have honest conversations with your family members that look, I'm not available for things like this, or with your partner or with your parents. Just have those conversations and limit your time availability for things in the family. So you have to make some sacrifices, but I guess at the end of it, trust me, it'll be worth it once you're able to get through with this exam quickly. Work-wise, I mean, it's like don't aim for a above target rating in your work for this year that you're going to prepare for the exam. Be content with middle ratings and just use your time efficiently. That's all I can say, because you can't have everything, right? Your family thing going perfectly well, your work going perfectly well, and doing this exam. You have to make some sacrifices. Just accept it and make those. That's how I approached it. And the one thing that helped me was that I set a timeline for me, right? Like I said, I'm giving this exam in October, and that's when I'm clearing it. So I set that end site time in my site, which meant I have to do the sacrifices for the next 9 to 12 months, or whatever that time limit is for you guys respectively. So if you set that fixed timeline that I'm giving this exam at this time and this is when I'm clearing it, I think making those sacrifices becomes that much more easier.
And this is much easier said than done. Like we say this, and
Ye- It is a challenge, right? You are learning a new language as an adult and hoping to clear a bit of a competitive exam. So there are going to be no easy routes, but yeah, I mean, you have to do it.
no, this is a common theme in all of us, like all of the people, me and you included, I would say, in this club who have succeeded.
Yeah.
This is one common thing between all of us, that everyone had to make sacrifices. And it only happened when we got serious, like when we got to that point where we realized that this is not going to happen with our normal life. Like this cannot happen with
No, it can't. It
1 or
can't.
2 hours of study here and there. It's not going to happen. So that we have all the students like you who have come here and spoken. That's a common thing that
Yeah, I'm
everybody.
sure, because that's what you need to do that. There's no way around it.
But what we want to tell at the end of this is that what was that feeling like? Okay, after all these sacrifices and hard work and all this, apart from the immigration, which is the thing, but how did it feel when you got the result?
Yeah, it is indescribable, right? You feel on top of the world because this is a challenge which is monumental. I mean, I don't want to, toot my own horn, but it is a big achievement to clear this exam, especially in the first attempt. It is very, very satisfying. You feel very proud. You also get that big boost of confidence that I can take on all and any challenge that comes up for me. All the hard work, as I said right at the beginning, it's worth it. The sacrifices may seem like, oh, how can you do that? It's not possible for me to do it, but do it. You will find out it is very doable if you put your mind and heart to it. And once you get through with it, you will just realize that, oh, it was totally, totally worth all the sacrifices you need to make.
Absolutely, I would second that. That's what I keep telling them, that okay, it's tough, but the end effect, that when you get the
Yeah,
result, it's like not just for Canada immigration, but other challenges of life, that I can do this at this age with this kind of life
yeah,
situation. I can
correct.
do these things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any strategies or techniques to specifically expand your vocabulary or work on vocabulary part?
So one thing I used to do for vocabulary, and I think that helped me personally, was that whenever I'm say I'm studying Edito, a chapter, any unit or chapter in it, every word that I come across in it, a noun, verb, adjective, I had a separate book in which I wrote down that book with the article, and if it's a specific typical verb with the conjugation, with some tip or some way to remember the conjugation style for that verb. And I had, like, those mid-sized classmate books. I had like almost two books full of vocabulary by the time I finished my B1 textbook. And that textbook was then always in my bag wherever I went, work or going out. And I would just spend time reading through those words, not necessarily memorizing it like you would, but just reading so that those words are repeatedly something that I'm seeing day in and day out. That is what personally worked for me to remember vocabulary, because it is otherwise a really tough task to remember vocabulary, especially with the articles. So what worked for me was this, having this self-written repository of words, which I kept seeing over and over again through the 7 8 months of proper serious preparation that I did. And yeah, other than that, as you get closer to the exam, you have to get smart about your vocab preparation, right? Because, like, for example, in reading, you have the type of questions where you have to order the statements in a particular way. One common theme of questions there is something about cooking, right? Cooking a dish. So that you will have at least one coming in all exams. So that means that you need to have at least 15 20 verbs related to cooking related things in your repository.
So yeah, I think, like, for example, in the ordering the sentences, like you can also pay attention to connectors like au début.
Yeah,
Uh,
correct.
so yeah, that's amazing. We also, in our exam specific program, we have the study resources exactly like you did, like the specific vocabulary for each section based on the prior exam that have happened. Online resources, applications like apps or forums or websites that you found helpful during your preparation.
I mean, I use Reverso quite extensively, to for any kind of translations and sentences, etc. One thing that I used to do very strongly as I got closer to the exam was I used to try to really even think in French, which can be a challenge for people like us who are, learning the language of French, because your natural way of thinking would be English or, whatever other language that you're comfortable in. So when you try to think in French, you can't, obviously there'll be sentences which you can't form fully, and then you quickly immediately pick up, because you always have your phone with you, pick up your phone, put that sentence in and learn that sentence right away. That will help you immensely in your writing and your speaking, because you will end up thinking in a certain language. You need to translate it and just get that thought out on paper, or express it during the exam. So Reverso was one app that I used extensively. I obviously registered for Prep My Future, which I think all of us do, which I practiced almost all the tests out of that, barring, I think, writing. I don't remember if I did it in there. But yeah, listening and reading, I did all of the Prep My Future tests. I don't think any used any. YouTube has a few listening tests which you can do. Some of them are free, some of them are paid, so you can do some of those uh, per se. But other than that, I just stuck to okay, maybe this will help. My resources that I used were very limited. I don't know, it worked for me. I don't know if it was the best strategy. I used the grammar resources for debarters, like matlab, very, very exhaustively. I knew everything that is there in that full video course to know. So I used that. For basis those lectures, I had one big notebook of my own notes, right? Like I would do when I'm in class. So I had my own notes to make pointers and stuff like that. So I had, that was my main grammar resource. And I had the editor books. Those were my key resources that I used.
You will not believe this, but this is my consistent advice to all the students, that less is more. Have less
Yes.
resources and do more with them, rather than just keep on collecting books after books, or apps after apps, or websites after website. Or even
Yeah.
sometimes people join multiple classes, multiple coaching institutes, just in a hope that it becomes easier. But the bottom line is,
It does not. Yeah.
it's not going to get
It's
easier.
all, yeah. And I mean, I'll just take 30 seconds to make this point. I have been on your side where I have attended these kind of sessions, and I always felt that, it's so easy to say it when you're on the other side of the finish line. But I know exactly the challenges that we go through, but I did it, and I am not we are not some rocket scientist to have finished it. So it is possible to do it. Don't lose heart, and just keep your heart and mind at achieving this one goal. And it is very, very doable with efforts.